time it was dangerous, and he presented a resolution to address that, working with Kerry Sprouse to do a road swap, if you recall, where we would abandon that section of road to that property owner, and then that property owner would deed us a rockier, drier section that goes up and around, a bypass, so to speak. Okay?
Right.
At the time, Public Works Director, if he were here today, he would swear on a Bible, and he said that new road that goes up and over is safer than what we had abandoned. That's his position, and it was my intent when I was the district attorney at the time that I didn't want to inherit something worse than what we had. It had to be at least as good, if not better. So we got this new right of way, and our road department at the time built a road up and over this area. About a month and a half ago or so, Ms. Lyons came into my office to kind of talk about that bypass road and it being somewhat inadequate to get heavy traffic through. We deployed our graders out there to try to widen it, flatten our we have a pretty good right of way through that section. I'm not talking about half of that section we come back down, okay? I'm just talking about, yeah, we have a 60-foot wide easement that goes up over this little hill. Anyway, we ran the graders out there, but there's a lot of bedrock and a lot of boulders in that road you can't bring a grader to. So, working with Bill Calderwood, trying to find out, what the plan is for this. We need a specialized piece of equipment. It's basically an excavator with a hammer on it, or some kind of pick, yeah. And we have to rent one of those from Wheeler Machinery out of Salt Lake. It's gonna be about $18,000.
Right.
But it's really not that bad of a cost because we can use it in 4 or 5 other spots in the county that have similar issues with big boulders in the road. So that wasn't part of the plan this year. Ms. Lyons' point is that we should have prioritized that and addressed it 2 years ago when we first did the trade and had at least something similar for traffic. So what I did last night, I ran out there just to look at it one more time to see what, how the condition is, how much better is it to have to run a grader. And the old road, what's nice about the old road, I mean, if you just forget the swamp in the middle of the road, that was the problem. Because the old road was nice and flat, wide, and went around that corner.
Could easily have a culvert,
But
It was private property.
well, the problem with the spring is it's on, the problem with the spring it's artesian and it's all over. It's not something you can culvert because it comes up right, bubbles in the middle of the road.
Right, square those up.
And we tried throwing gravel at it, we tried different things over the years, and we have not been able to address it. So that's one of the reasons why, instead of running equipment out there all the time and trying to address it, it was Public Works Director opinion at the time that it'd be better to just do a new road route. Anyway, the problem with the new road route, and I will agree, is the climb up, and then it's also at a bad tilt when you go around that corner, and that's very dangerous for tall loads. And that's why they want to pick those boulders out so they can grade into the hill a little bit more and flatten it out to grade, but we have to wait to get that machinery, and it wasn't on our list of things to do for scheduling or budget this year. We have been talking about trying to get it done in the spring as soon as we come out of snow melt. And we're gonna try to shove it into our plan for this year, our maintenance plan for this year.
Right.
I went all the way down, so here's the other issue that I don't really want to talk about today too much, but it's on your mind. When you come off of that new 60-foot wide easement, or right away, or whatever we have, you're now back on RS 2477 type claim on our Standard County road. It is a Standard County road, but we have to work within existing disturbance. And it gets a little narrow there through some brush, and then a ways down the road a little bit, there are some more rocks and boulders that are like this, like historic wagon trail width, and that's problematic also. But we have limited rights to do anything about that because of our BLM trespass rules. So I just want to point that out, that we may not be able to address some of that other stuff down the road, but we do have some of it. Well, we don't have a. How am I going to put this? We want to prioritize working on this bypass, not just Ms. Lyons. She's just bringing it to our attention because we don't do roads for private, one particular resident. But she's bringing to light there's this issue that's affecting public travel. And so it is on our agenda. We do washed out, a lot of the grade. It's gonna be difficult to do anything about the incline. When I came back, just my pickup truck coming back towards the prison, that climb is a little ridiculous coming up.
32%.
Yeah, it's pretty steep.
It is,
And
it is.
I don't like it. I just aren't sure, well, at this point now, you know, minus major construction, I don't know what we're gonna do about it. So, I think we'll start with the rocks, pulling all those boulders out, leveling it down a little bit, because it's a longer section, so you can't just remove half a mountain to bring down that grade.
Exactly.
But we might be able to build up the other ends of it, so, we're gonna be looking at it this spring, and hopefully we'll have a much better solution coming into the summer season. When did you purchase your property out there?
I purchased my property about the exact same time as the trade.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, just wanna make you aware that we are working on it. I've been trying to be responsive to Miss Lyons and the public. You know, it's not just hunters and Miss Lyons, but that's a major route
No,
for
the
sheep and grazing.
Uvaldes said they wouldn't be able to make it today due to moving cattle. They said they were gonna try to contact Mr. Shane Bybee and also advise him that they have issues of getting their large fifth wheel horse trailers.
Horse trail.
Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to take a trailer up the other way.
Yeah.
Like going back that way, coming down the grade line is bad, but pulling one up, it's gonna
Going
be a
back
little rough.
up
You're gonna
is-
put a four-wheel drive probably.
And he did, Mike Uvalde did speak with Bill Calderwood
Yeah.
yesterday too.
So I invite you, when you're out, if you wanna take a trip to the hills,
I've
take your
been
car
there.
over that way and go take a
I've been
look.
there and I spoke
You're
with
not taking
Ms.
a
Lyons
car,
too,
that's for
so.
sure, yeah.
So, anyway, it is much better now than it was before your complaint.
Yes.
Much better, but it still has a lot of room for resolution. Because that wasn't my intent at the time, was to get something that would be more difficult for public passage. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
As long as we're gonna have that piece of equipment out there in the spring and resolving that issue, was it possible to transport that piece of equipment over and resolve some of the issues on the 30-mile road as well? The rock issues and that?
Yeah.
As long as we're going to be addressing some issues in that area, we might as well kill two birds.
That and he's looking at success too.
Yeah, success is part of the problem.
Yeah.
I'll get with Martin and see if he can go out and inspect and see if that can be a tool that can be used out there to better that road and our rights out there too.
Yeah, and maybe have our engineer look at that bypass road out there and just see if they can come up with some better ideas on ways to alleviate that grade.
Got it.
And then just another idea, as you're always discussing with the mines, I don't know if they have, I'd imagine they probably have something equivalent equipment, if they would.
You know, that's, not only does the mine have equipment, but I think there's a local contractor in town that has a piece of equipment, but I've explored some of those options, and for whatever reason, our public works director is more inclined just to go with, because they get it for like a month or something like that, or
Yeah.
2 months, and they'll have it, and they can just move it all around, or, but I'll inquire.
Well, and you rent that piece of equipment and it breaks down. Those breakdowns are usually covered in the rental
Yeah, that's
agreement.
true.
You borrow one from the mine somewhere and you break it down and you pay for it. And it doesn't take much to run up a $500,000 bill on a piece of equipment like that.
That's right. We're trying to avoid that, but I want to use this opportunity, Ms. Lyons asked if she should, you know, if she should continue to have this item, and I encourage her to bring it to the board's attention, because it is important to the board.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to have the same kind of access which we had prior to the trade, where we can easily get through there without damaging our equipment and things of that nature. You know, the slashing tires and ripping stuff off of your trailers is not adequate at all.
So that's what I have on it right now.
Okay, well, we will just have Mike keep iron on the fire there, and yeah, Ms. Lyons, thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
And please communicate with Mike as needed, and we'll get her done. Okay, discussion for possible action, approval of road agreement with Kinross Gold Ball Mountain for WP 1000, Jeremy Drew, RCI. Hello, Jeremy.
Good morning, Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you perfect.
All right. Well, this is a beautiful fall day in Virginia City where I happen to find myself this morning, but glad to join you via Zoom to button up an item that we've had outstanding now for a couple of months. Item number 4 is specific to the road maintenance agreement with Kinross actually exactly the same agreement that came before this board several months ago. If you'll recall, there was some discussion around the realignment proposal on White Pine 1000 to increase both the safety of the public who travel that road as well as the mine traffic on that road. And there were some details that we needed to hash out with KGBM in terms of what the right-of-way on that would look like. And so really the only thing we're proposing today in terms of the maintenance agreement is that we would add the letter under item number 5 as an appendix to that agreement. And other than that, there are no proposed changes. We have discussed the agreement with Bill and the county manager, and certainly Mike is welcome to provide any other detail or answer questions. But that's the quick update as relates to the agreement. So I would recommend or suggest that the motion may include appending the letter in item 5, assuming you all approve that and move forward. With that, Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, let me open item 5 as well. Discussion for possible action, approval of a letter to Kinross Gold, Ball Mountain regarding possible realignment of WP 1000. Jeremy Drew.
Okay, so Chairman, this is again a specific letter that would go to Jared Bybee as the field manager of the Bristol Cone Field office. They're the office that is considering KGBM's right-of-way application. And again, what KGBM is looking at doing is realigning up to about a dozen portions of the road in White Pine County. Some of them are under a quarter of a mile, some of them may be closer to a mile. But essentially trying to take the blind dips and curves out of that road, or at least making them a little more gentle, so you don't have issues with cattle and horse collisions. We've talked back and forth with BLM a couple times, as well as Bill and the county manager. Our belief is that we think supporting KGBM's application for right-of-way is the best way to proceed here, provided the conditions that are included in the letter. So I'll just run through them quickly. No alteration or limitation on public access. The county would not forfeit its RS 2477 claim. And the way we propose to do that is KGBM has agreed in those areas where the new alignment goes outside of the historic alignment, they will leave that historic alignment in place. So the public could still use the old alignment for ingress and egress, and it would maintain the RS 2477 claim there. The right-of-way would be non-exclusive, so if the county did at a future time want to request a formal right-of-way or adjudicate RS 2477, nothing in the KGBM right-of-way would preclude the county from doing that. And then we talked about coordination with affected private landowners and grazing permittees, and we have confirmed that KGBM has already begun reaching out and leaving those old sections of road is actually probably going to improve access and safety for the folks who pull off there for grazing, maintenance of water lines, things of that nature. And so this has been discussed with both BLM and KGBM. I will say that the only other option that we would have is to essentially ask KGBM to withdraw their application and submit a new application in the county's name, with KGBM being the county's agent. The advantage of that is it would provide a perpetual right-of-way to the county, and there would be no bonding requirements on the road. The drawback of that, and one of the things that Bill brought up, is there is the potential for additional stipulations on that right-of-way, especially given that we have some sage grouse there. And then, whatever the level of comfort is with KGBM being the county's agent. At the end of the day, I think County Manager Weeble and Bill and I all thought that the approach offered in the letter made the most sense for the county. Again, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and would encourage the county manager to provide any supplemental information that I may have missed.
We were hoping with BLM that we'd be able to just scratch out KGBM and put White Pine County on their paperwork. They wanted to start the process over again, and they've been so delayed out there that our primary concern in getting involved in the first place is we didn't want to lose our our road, any kind of property rights out there for the public access. So when I learned that KGBM wasn't going to, it was part of the original plan, is, hey, we'll restore the old road, we'll seed it, we'll, whatever. And they said they didn't need to do any of that, nor did they have to block traffic, we can keep it open to the ranching and hunting. That, because we were getting some complaints from ranchers out there too about this, losing this road. It seemed like it's a very simple solution. We're just not doing anything, we're maintaining our road. It's historical use, we're gonna keep using it, and that's where our claim is at, and we're not losing it. In the future, after KGBM is done using that alternate route, perhaps we can apply for a right-of-way over it if that's the county's decision. In the meantime, KGBM is also keeping their new road open to the public, so it's a win-win all across the board, and they can move forward on the project.
So Mike and Jeremy also, and I've had conversations with both of you, because I had conversations with some of the Gogachias, and I was very concerned, because at that time, nobody had discussed it with them. And so I was wondering how those conversations have gone.
I don't know if Jeremy or, I thought Bill may have talked about, I haven't spoke with any of the Gogachias on this. I have heard that they are pleased that we're not abandoning our road. So they're not losing any access,
Right.
That's one of the benefits of this plan, is it's staying the way, status quo for the motoring community. And there is a safer route if the community wants to go the other way, so.
Because if we go, I'm sorry, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Jeremy. No, go ahead, Jeremy.
Commissioner Carson, I can confirm that I did speak with JJ Goycochea in our last conversation with KGBM. They had indicated to us that they had a conversation with the Goycocheas, and that they were actually very comfortable with leaving the old alignment in place. In fact, it would address some of their concerns with access to one of their stock tanks that just happens to be at the bottom of a blind dip. So leaving the old road alignment in place is actually beneficial to them and their safety and the safety of the folks on White Pine 1000. And I did subsequently confirm that same conversation and viewpoint with JJ the same day KGBM relayed it to us. So yes, I have had that conversation, and I think we want to make sure that that dialogue remains open going forward as well through the EA process.
Sounds like everybody's on board with this approach, so I'll look for a motion to approve.
And so this motion would include having,
4 and 5, yes.
well, having it as an addendum to number 4. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That's correct. So we're looking for approval on 4 with inclusion of the approved letter from 5 being appended to the maintenance agreement.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Jeremy. We'll get right back to you after item 6 here. Discussion for possible action, approval of the minutes from the following road commission meetings, August 24th, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, we'll go to our 9:30, back to Jeremy, natural resources, discussing information only regarding White Pine County natural resource and public land issues tracking list. Jeremy?
Yes, Chairman. Again, good morning, and for your record, Jeremy Drew, Principal Resource Specialist with Resource Concepts. I was going to focus today on 3 items and then, of course, open it up to discussion or questions from the board. The first item was brought up in public comment, and that's the proposed Spring Valley National Monument designation. If you'll recall, I believe it was back in June, a letter of support came before the board, essentially saying that they supported the proposed designation. The board at that time tabled that letter to the Natural Resource Advisory Committee for their review and discussion. That actually came to fruition at last week's meeting. So the tribal representatives were able to be in attendance and present their concept for the national monument. And really, I think the 2 key parts of that are that the proposal would transfer management of about 25,000 acres from the BLM to the National Park Service in order to commemorate the cultural significance of that site in and around the Swamp Cedars in Spring Valley the Cleveland Ranch, north of the wind farm, although it does extend across Highway 50 or 6 down towards Shoshone Ponds. So there is a significant amount of land involved. There are grazing permits involved. There are water rights involved. A lot of the discussion at the Natural Resource Advisory Committee revolved around questions in terms of access, grazing, and how that might be preserved. Kind of this concept of, you know, is the intent to preserve the area or bring more attention and possibly more visitation to the area. And then, of course, water is always a topic of discussion, as well as wildlife management. At the end of the day, I think everyone agreed that the concept certainly has merit, given the historical significance of the site, but that the details of whether it's a presidential proclamation or whether it's a congressional designation, the language really needs to ensure that the intent presented to the committee and to the commission is met. And at least in the support material we were provided, I'm not sure that we got there. And so the direction from the advisory committee was to draft a letter or update the letter that was provided, essentially saying that the county supports the concept, but is looking for some more specific language to assure that things like public access and grazing and management of water and wildlife would essentially remain as is. And they asked that that letter be brought back to the commission on October 18th at their next meeting, or the advisory committee. So I would anticipate that the county commission may see a final recommended letter at their second meeting in October, and I will be working diligently between now and then to put that together. There was a public comment offered in regards to the map being supplied not being particularly detailed. I would agree with that assessment, and we have already reached out to the tribal representatives to see if we can get shape files and better present a map to the advisory committee as well as this commission, so that everyone understands the acreage that is on the table. Somewhat related, although separate, Nye County reached out to me about 3 weeks ago through their natural resource manager and past commissioner Lorinda Wickman. They are working on a lands bill in Nye County that encompasses lands from one end of the county to the other. One of the aspects of that is that the Duckwater tribe was looking to expand their reservation. At one time, there was some talk about that expansion extending into White Pine County, but after subsequent conversations, it sounds like the tribe is not interested in extending into White Pine County, and that they will stay kind of more or less on the Nye County side. So I just wanted to flag that more for this board's visibility and understanding in case something were to change or if you hear of some sort of indirect impact. An assessment of the maps and discussing this with the Natural Resource Advisory Committee last week, no one raised concerns as relates to potential for indirect impacts. And then one other project that I wanted to talk about that does, again, indirectly, and actually this is more directly tied back to the National Monument designation, the cross-tie 500 kV transmission line project, which you'll recall is coming out of Utah to the Robinson substation, generally along Highway 50. That's still in cooperating agency process, but it does cross the proposed national monument. And because they're seeking a new right-of-way, if the monument were designated prior to the right-of-way being granted by the BLM, there could be issues associated with that. The tribe has very clearly stated that they want the monument designated in recognition of valid and existing rights, but right-of-ways that are not yet granted or grazing permits a lot of times are not viewed by federal agencies as quote-unquote valid existing rights. And I think that just gets back to making sure that the language in the proclamation or the congressional designation ensures that the county is not foreclosing on any projects that are, or multiple uses that are important to the county in that area. And I think connectivity of utility infrastructure along the Highway 50 corridor is probably one aspect that we'll need to discuss again next month.
Hey, Jeremy?
So those are the three items that I wanted to address, Chairman. I will pause for questions.
I just wanted to serve you up a softball so you can explain the concept, that this came up at the advisory board meeting when I was there. That we can put all our desires and recommendations we want in a letter of support for this project, but once it gets served up to either the legislature or the president, they can do whatever they want. So we can say we want all these exceptions, all these existing rights, all this access, and they can say, nah, thanks, we're just gonna designate all this like this, and the county loses those rights. We don't have a lot of standing is what I'm saying.
Couldn't they do it with or without our letter of support?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because, is that correct, Jeremy? Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, it really depends on what route it goes. So that has probably a higher potential to occur if it goes through presidential proclamation. However, typically an administration will at least check with the state's congressional delegation before running kind of a unilateral designation. The tribe has indicated an interest and a willingness to work with the county. They don't want this to be a controversial project, and I take them at their word in that. And so my hope by offering specific language early in the process, or at least during the process, that they would be willingly understand our concerns and be willing to include that in their final proposal. If this were to go more of a congressional designation route, and remember, national monuments can go through a presidential proclamation through the Antiquities Act or can be designated by Congress. In the event that it's designated by Congress, again, typically your home state delegation will have an opportunity to weigh in. Congressman Amodei is certainly well-versed in land policy and land bills and monument issues, as are both senators, quite frankly. And so I think the question came up in the advisory committee. Certainly, we could provide recommendations and they don't get incorporated at all. And at the same time, I think not providing some level of input and specificity would be leaving an opportunity on the table. And I would probably advise carbon copying our congressional delegation, as well as the Department of Interior on the letter, just so everyone knows that the county is supportive of the concept, but wants to ensure the true intent of maintaining uses like grazing and existing water rights is preserved for future generations.
Are you gonna be incorporating some language into your draft letter for the NRAC board with regards to energy transmission corridors?
Yes, I believe that's a good idea, even though it wasn't discussed specifically by the board. I think we should incorporate it in the letter and then bring it to their attention. Because again, it occurred to me immediately after the meeting that didn't come up in conversation, and then I subsequently confirmed. I think some folks believe that, because that line is proposed to be immediately adjacent to the existing line, that they're using the same right-of-way. But my understanding in going back and reviewing their scoping materials is that's not the case. There's a planning corridor that parallels the existing line, but the new line will ultimately need a brand new right-of-way designation. They can't, I think it's, for spacing and energy regulation requirements, that they can't co-locate immediately within the same right-of-way as an existing line. So again, long-winded answer, but yes, I believe that should be incorporated in the letter.
So Jeremy, just real quick, do you have any idea if there might be an appetite to, even though I don't think it's been identified as the preferred location yet, but if it could be dissected somehow to where you have the monument on each side of the transmission line?
Commissioner Carson, that is certainly an option, essentially to build a corridor, through the middle of the monument. I think the other option is likely to, provide an allowance for future infrastructure to be developed within the planning corridor. So I think there's a couple of ways to skin the cat. You've certainly identified one of them.
It was a struggle. I mean, that board's made